All I'm going to say is, in New Orleans, the police didn't bring food. They brought gun confiscation with all the economic crises and all the talk of food shortage and everything that's happening. You're crazy if you don't get storable foods. And we've got the sponsor for you, longest continually operating company. It's dried food, so it's very heavy, but stores in small containers, so fills up small areas, very easy to transport, lasts more than 10 years. J. Michael Stevens Group, efoodsdirect.com, and it's Steve Shank. But I wanted to get him up on the air because he is involved in massive food purchasing and preparation and sale, and he told us a year ago about coming food shortages and massive food increases. Thanks for coming on with us, Steve.
Hey, glad to be aboard, Alex. I really appreciate that last guest that you had on. We are in a situation right now. Remember when you and I talked a long time ago about the fact that food is the control mechanism of the system? Absolutely. We have a worldwide famine, and it's deadly serious. But, you know, I think a lot of people don't realize that it's not going to be very long before they are not going to be acquiring groceries in the grocery store. It's already there. We have rationing of rice. We have rationing of wheat in the form of flour. The last notice that we put out, we've started putting out situation reports, Alex, to anybody that has an email with us. And the information that we put out, you got to realize that, you know, on my radio program last night, they had a little news flash how Mrs. Bush was berating the Burmese government for not notifying their people of a storm that came. Well, we have a worse situation with the food. Our government is not notifying your listeners that there's no food. And the president just appropriated another he's in the process of appropriating another $770 million to go along with the $200 million that he's sending off to the UN to buy food for these third world countries.
And he's refusing to limit exports of our own food, despite the fact that we've already seen a 35% increase in the overall average price of food in the last 6 months.
Now, it even gets worse than that. The farm organizations, Alex, just petitioned like crazy to have the government control mechanism over futures, the commodity futures markets. Now, you know that every place that you can invest, the government has control mechanisms. Well, what they're doing is we have investors right now. You talk about hoarding.
No, I know that's the main thing. Adding to all this is not just the bad last 3 seasons, but we have big global speculators who are dumping their dollars, and they're dumping it in raw commodities like food and then hoarding.
Why do you think that the gold prices went down? They're not buying gold anymore. They're buying food. They're buying futures. They're buying the future crop, and they're buying every crop they can get a hold of. So here's what we got. We've got the United Nations that is just about to receive almost $1 billion of American money. Now, they asked the developed nations to send that money, but we're sending all but 30 million of it.
Steve, stay there. We got a break. We're going to come back and maybe go to the next segment after that with Steve Shank, and then I got a bunch of other global news. Anyway, you slice it, we're going into very rough waters, batten down the hatches, and get storable foods. efoodsdirect.com. But Steve is here because he's on the inside of all this. He can tell us what's really going on, as if the news itself isn't bad enough. We'll be right back. Folks, 5, 6, 7 years ago, before all these crises were happening, I had storable food. And then what you do is when it gets old, I haven't really gotten to that point yet, you just start eating it, or you give it away to family, friends, give it away to the local food banks. It's good stuff. But the stuff that Steve Shank's got will last more than 10 years and climate controlled. 10 years if it's not climate controlled, say in your garage or attic. And but he's every time I bring up his products, he says, no, I want to tell them what's happening. And he's got a free email alert that goes out every day. You can go sign up for it, efoodsdirect.com. And, he was telling me a year ago they were already seeing prices go up and having trouble getting it. And, yeah, they admit that all these big companies are buying it up and hoarding it, even though there was already a shortage. They're hoarding it. Are they trying to drive the market up and then dump it, or what are they doing, Steve?
Well, the worst thing, it's not the companies that are hoarding it. Most of those are trying to get it shipped back out. What's happening is your commodities, futures investors, people from all over the world, and particularly in the United States, are buying up the crops. And at the same time, we've got the United Nations. Now, when the money gets back, now Mr. Bush is trying to send almost $1 billion. That was the amount that was asked for by the United Nations Food Program, and it was asked from all of the developed nations. We're sending it all. And we're the only nation that is not restricting exports of our food. And that means that when that big chunk of money comes back around, there's only one country it's going to be bought from. These investors within our country, our own Americans, are buying up the food, and they will sell it when the UN comes in with our own money to buy it away from us.
Okay, let me break this down for people. We've got a double whammy here. Not only are there hundreds of trillions of U.S. dollars out there that all want to come back in now, and globally people are dumping them and they're trying to buy up what's skyrocketing, i.e. food, commodities, gold, silver, oil, food. I mean, the whole gamut has been going up overall in the last year. But then, because the dollar's been devalued, they can come here and use their investments to buy things even cheaper. Go ahead.
That's absolutely right. And the fact is that right now, just to give an example, wheat is what you grind to get flour. Now, Costco and the companies are limiting the amount of flour you can have, limiting the amount of rice you can have, limiting the amount of cooking oil that you can have. And what happens is that these other countries, you figure China has 1.3 trillion of our dollars, and they are short of wheat. Guess where they're going to go? China shut down their exports, even though we're importing from them. They shut all these other countries that we're importing 30 to 40% of our food from have shut down their exports to keep the food for their own people. Not only are we not keeping the food for our own people, but we're giving the United Nations almost $1 billion to come back and buy that food away from our people. At the same time, our government regulation organizations are not stopping the investors in commodities from buying up the feed. Now corn is just about to be rationed also, and that means that if they have 86% less corn this next year, that means that all of the feed for cattle. I talked last night, Alex, to a fellow that has 1,000 head of cattle out in one of the Midwestern states. He specializes, he raised the cattle. He has to buy the feed for those cattle from guys that specialize in raising the feed. They are taking the cattle feed, turning it into ethanol, and subsidizing the ethanol. And what's going to happen here within the next couple of months is that the dairy herds that can't afford to feed, that can't afford to be fed to provide your milk and your butter and things and your meat, your beef herds are all fed corn. All your poultry is fed corn.
Well, a large percentage of it in some states like Texas, it's range fed. But yeah, you're right. A lot of it that'll certainly cause an increase in price, and then everything else is going up in price because the dollar is plunging in value.
Well, no, it's not a matter of price. It just isn't going to be there, Alex. I'm telling you. The outside investors, these other countries are coming in. The Kansas City wheat market, for example, is upset as all get out. The brokers on the wheat market, because foreign countries are coming in and they aren't even asking the price. They're buying all that they can get at whatever price it takes. And our
now, is this a real food shortage or is it all caused by dollar devaluation and wild speculation?
It is absolutely a food shortage. This is the third year of a worldwide famine. The stinking planet didn't produce enough food to feed its population the last 2 years running, and we've got less food, less water. And on top of it, now that we've got the shortages of food, investment organizations are going in and other countries are going in and bidding away that food from our people. It's not going to be a matter of whether you can afford it or not. I don't care how much money you got. You
Stay there, Steve. I want to come back and finish up.